stationary. His beam chip never leaves the view of his lens. This supports Maccabee's conclusion that this film was taken of a relatively small, light object suspended by a string and swinging like a pendulum around a small model tree.
The bottom line for me is that I can't say that Meyer has not had any experiences. He may well have. But I'm not using any of his video or photos or whatever as what I would consider scientific evidence that there really are aliens flying around out there.
Still, other photographic evidence, such as this image taken by a geological survey team off the coast of Brazil in 1958, point away from hoax and toward the sighting of a real flying saucer.
A Brazilian naval photographer on a ship was there with the rest of the men when they saw an object shaped like Saturn, in other words, an object with a ring around it, flying toward an island that they were near, Trinidad Island, flying around the island and then taking off in the distance. And he snapped 4 or 5 or so or more photos of the object with literally dozens and dozens of witnesses.
The sighting lasted nearly 2 minutes. First, the object was reported to approach the island. Then, it disappeared behind a mountain. It then reappeared before moving off at high speed toward the sea.
Now, these pictures show something. It's not an ambiguous object that could be anything. This is clearly a structure that somebody built. It doesn't look like anything that we have on Earth. There were all these witnesses who saw the picture being taken. For these reasons, the photographs are unusually evidential and have to figure in any kind of case for the reality of UFOs as somebody's technology.
Because this is a multiple witness case done by scientists and a professional photographer, and it has many photographs, it probably has to be taken seriously as the #1 photographic case in UFO history.
Many people consider that if UFOs represent extraterrestrial intelligence, then they would simply land on the United States White House lawn and prove to the world that they exist. In 1952, those people almost had their proof.
Perhaps the most important sighting of all time was the so-called Washington merry-go-round that occurred in late July 1952. It seems to have been a whole set of anomalous objects that appeared over secure airspace in the Capitol, over all of the famous important buildings that paced craft around Washington National Airport, that was seen by a variety of radars at the time.
At 11:40 p.m. on Saturday, July 19, 1952, an air traffic controller at Washington National Airport spotted 7 blips in a corner of the radar scope. They were moving at 100 miles per hour and were heading for the Capitol. No aircraft were known to be in the area. Jet interceptors were scrambled to investigate the UFOs, but within moments, the radar blips had disappeared. When the jets landed, the UFOs returned.
That sighting has never been adequately explained. Because it happened in Washington, D.C., it alerted everybody right on up to the President of the United States and caused a national press conference by the Chief of Intelligence of the Air Force to try to calm everybody down.
At his press conference, General Sanford, Air Force Intelligence Director, confirmed that the objects were not secret American weapons and reiterated the Air Force's obligation to investigate the UFOs.
We have received and analyzed between 1,000 and 2,000 reports that have come to us from all kinds of sources. Of this great mass of reports, we have been able adequately to explain the great bulk of them, explain them to our own satisfaction. However, there have been a certain percentage of this volume of reports that have been made by credible observers of relatively incredible things. It is this group of observations that we now are attempting to resolve. We have, as of date, come to only one firm conclusion with respect to this remaining percentage, and that is that it does not contain any pattern of purpose or of consistency that we can relate to any conceivable threat to the United States.
In spite of this supposedly open address on the subject of UFOs, there remained those who believed that the Army knew more about flying saucers than it would reveal.
In the 50s, there was the belief that the U.S. Air Force had proof of some sort that these were alien spaceships and was covering it up to prevent panic. That, in fact, the government not only knows about flying saucers, but is in cahoots with the aliens, that there is a technology exchange going on.
There is little to support the claim that any government has alien flying saucers in its possession. In the years following Roswell, the Army Air Force designed and tested a number of saucer-like craft, but none appeared to be of alien origin or especially flight-worthy. But some say that the government has been test-flying captured alien flying saucers for years in a remote territory that lies deep in the desert of Nevada. In the center of the Nellis Air Force Range, they point to the top-secret dry lake bed here they call Area 51. Visitors to this spot are monitored from the restricted airspace above and by ground vibration sensors that detect their unwelcome approach. The surrounding mountaintops hold still other devices that scan for any movement from below. Once they are alerted, private security forces move in to discourage the curious from getting closer. For those who defy these measures trying for a glimpse inside, there is one last chilling warning. Deadly force will be used if you come any closer. Are military secrets hidden here, or is there more?
There's a new body of folklore growing up around UFOs, and this is associated with Area 51, which is part of the Nevada test site. And the story is that flying saucer technology is being tested and flown in extraordinarily advanced aircraft that are being developed there. There doesn't seem to be any question that there are extraordinarily advanced aircraft being test flown there, and this has been going on for some years.
Area 51 was the development site used for the F-117 stealth fighter. U.S.-operated MiGs have flown from that area. These are extraordinary vehicles, and if you had seen, say, an F-117 in flight before it had been publicized, you would not have known what to make of it. It would have been a UFO in a very real sense, an unidentified flying object.
The stealth fighter is truly an incredible aircraft, and few could even dream of it in the 1970s. To observers near Area 51 at that time, it would have appeared surprisingly alien and worthy itself of a flying saucer report.
What's really interesting is that as long ago as 1947, people were reporting the boomerang-shaped UFO, which now looks very much like what is being flown as part of the stealth technology. It is interesting that certain kinds of aircraft that undeniably exist look very much like what people reported as UFOs for many years.
Some believe that the source of such technology is alien. If it is, then many trace the source back to Roswell in 1947 and the government's supposed cover-up of the spacecraft that crashed there. In response to this, the investigative arm of Congress reopened the Roswell case in 1994 and began a search of the government records related to these events. The result was an investigation and report by the General Accounting Office.
The General Accounting Office report is brief, like most of their reports, and it simply describes what they did to try to discover what happened at Roswell, which was contact the usual suspects, the CIA, the FBI, the National Security Agency, and so forth, and asked if they had information on Roswell and asked to see certain records there.